Very good. Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Great to see you all. Good to be back together again. I hope you're all doing well. Hope keeping healthy and enjoying the weather. We've got some here on the East Coast, or here in Washington area. We got some 90-degree weather coming up. So we'll almost certainly be having some visits from some 1.5 trillion of our good friends who'll be digging their ways up in the coming days. I've already seen a few. I'm sure we've seen them. The cicadas. So looking forward to that. And yeah, good to be with you. And maybe just beginning by recognizing what a painful, difficult time it is right now in the Middle East, and holding all of the people of Palestinians and Israelis and all who are going through the suffering right now in our hearts. And my deepest wish is for an end to the conflict and a resolution of the underlying issues that keep it going for years and decades. And we'd like to hold everyone in our hearts today as we begin our time together. And so, what we've been doing in last few months is we've been beginning with a meditation, a little bit longer than previously, so maybe 25-minute or so meditation to help us arrive and settle and open to whatever guests are present, whatever we're experiencing in the body and the heart and the mind. Inviting kind attention to our experience, and then I'll do a short talk today, kind of on our cultivating and finding our way to our inner goodness, to our Buddha nature, and then we'll have some time in small groups, and then maybe in the full group. Emily is at the beach today, having a well-deserved beach time, so she won't be with us today. So we'll see her next week again, and then we'll finish with a short meditation and some announcements. So again, welcome to you all. Welcome to everyone today. And let's begin with a meditation. Could just let your attention come into the body. Make any adjustments you need to make in your posture, establishing a comfortable, relaxed sitting posture, inviting the shoulders to relax. Let the chest be open so you can breathe easily, comfortably. And if you'd like to, you can let your eyes close, let your attention drop inward. Consciously drop out of the thinking mode. Let your attention come down and feel the body, feel the contact with the surface beneath you, your seat, cushion, with your feet with the floor, your hands in your lap or on your knees, whatever they're touching. And just let yourself be here. could connect with your breathing. Just notice how your breath feels right now as we begin. And you could consciously deepen your breathing. Take some longer, deeper breaths. Nice full deep in breath, filling the lungs, filling the chest. And relaxing, releasing, letting go on the out breath. Nice full deep in breath and relaxing out breath. You might envision any stresses, any busyness, worries, just being released as you breathe out. Feel the energy that comes into the body as you breathe in, and then that releasing, relaxing as you breathe out. Just inviting a calming of the body and the mind. Good to remember that the breath and the deeper breaths can be available to us anytime, particularly if we're feeling stressed or worried about anything, annoyed. Just to come back and take a few longer, deeper breaths. Whenever you're ready, letting the breath settle back to its natural rhythm. Breathing in, breathing out. You might take a moment to invite a smile to your face. It's just a way of helping again to relax the body and the mind. You could think of someone who makes you feel joyful, happy. Invite the face into the expression of a smile. Corners of your eyes and the corners of your mouth. You might let the smile come down into the heart, into the body. Helping soften and relax any hard edges, tension, tightness. Relaxing the body, the mind. Just letting yourself be here with whatever is present right now. Notice any feelings in the body and make space for whatever is here. Notice whatever mood or emotions are present right now. See if you can make space for whatever's here. You might notice how a difficult feeling feels when met with kindness and with acceptance. Inviting that quality of kind attention, compassionate curiosity towards your experience. Might consciously connect with just making a space for whatever is present in the body and the heart and the mind. As Martha Postlethwaite speaks of creating a clearing in the dense forest of your life. Just waiting patiently, whatever might arise, until the song that is yours alone to sing falls into your open cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. When the mind wants to go off into something that feels urgent, something you might be worried about, or a lot of mental energy is going into, you might just bow to that thought or that worry or that memory. Let yourself be here. To choose not to get caught up or lost in the storyline, the stories going on in the mind. Just to be here. This moment, this moment without judgment. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Letting the breath be an anchor for your awareness, if that's helpful to you. Just to be aware of the body breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. As a way of grounding your attention in the present moment, right here, right now. You might see if you can allow an attitude of acceptance to hold whatever you're experiencing. Just everything that comes up can be held in kind acceptance. Just coming back, beginning again. If the mind goes off into plans or stories or memories or daydreams, just gently, kindly beginning again. This breath, this feeling, this moment. Share this poem by Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi. There was a time I would reject those who were not of my faith, but now my heart has grown capable of taking on all forms. It's a pasture for gazelles, an abbey for monks, a table for the Torah, Kaaba for the pilgrim. My religion is love. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be the path of my faith. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be the path of my faith. Meeting and holding whatever you're experiencing with acceptance and with kindness. Just inviting that attitude. And if there's resistance present, see how it would be to meet the resistance with kindness, with acceptance. So it's not denying the resistance or pushing it away, but making space for it, holding a no in the spirit, the container really of yes. Let the yes be large enough to hold whatever is present. Can you say yes to the no? Make space for resistance, for what's not easy to be with. Notice where your attention is right now. Know you can always come back, begin again in any moment. Just this breath, this feeling, this moment. Finish with this poem called The Good News by Thich Nhat Hanh. The good news they do not print. The good news we do print. We have a special edition every moment, and we need you to read it. The good news is that you are alive, that the linden tree is still there, standing firm in the harsh winter. The good news is that you have wonderful eyes to touch the blue sky. The good news is that your child is there before you and your arms are available. Hugging is possible. They only print what is wrong. Look at each of our special editions. We always offer the things that are not wrong. We want you to benefit from them and help protect them. The dandelion is there by the sidewalk, smiling its wondrous smile, singing the song of eternity. Listen. You have ears that can hear it. Bow your head. Listen to it. Leave behind the world of sorrow, of preoccupation, and get free. The latest good news is that you can do it. So welcome to everyone, and welcome if you joined us since we began, if you joined us during the meditation. Warm welcome to everyone. What I'd like to do in the coming few minutes is to share a story. This story might be a familiar one to you, but I want to reflect, and it's been others have also shared about the meaning and of the metaphor in this story that I'll share. But I want to kind of share a few reflections on it today. I think it's very relevant to our practice and to our lives and to our times. And it begins with a story, and this is a true story of the Golden Buddha. And the story is that there was a monastery in Thailand in 1957 was being moved, and a group of monks was tasked with moving a giant clay Buddha that had always been located at the monastery. And in the process of moving it, one of the monks noticed a crack in the clay. he became very concerned about further damaging the statue, and he stopped work to examine the crack closer. And then one of the monks took a flashlight and began to inspect the entire Buddha. And when he shone his light on the crack, something reflected back at him. The now curious monk retrieved a hammer and chisel and began to chip carefully away at the clay. After hours of carefully chipping away the clay, he admired what he had slowly uncovered, a solid gold Buddha. Historians believe that hundreds of years ago, monks from the monastery covered the Buddha with clay in preparation for an attack by the Burmese army. The monks figured the invading army would have no use for a large clay Buddha and leave it alone. All of the monks died in the invasion, leaving no one alive that knew the truth. And so it was not until 1957 that the actual nature of the Buddha was revealed. So I think we can all appreciate that story, appreciate the kind of the story of the gold Buddha encased in clay and kind of looking very ordinary and very, very kind of mundane and nothing special. And I think of this metaphor, and I think, you know, to many as well, it's a beautiful story and a powerful metaphor for our own hidden goodness, goodness that's often hidden. You could say the gold within ourselves, our Buddha nature. You know, the Buddha's teachings tell us that all of our suffering, all of our unhappiness comes essentially from confusion, from ignorance, from not seeing clearly where true happiness lies, and instead looking for happiness and freedom where they can't be found. You know, like looking for love in all the wrong places, you know, looking for happiness in places that we can't find happiness. So, you know, looking for happiness in, you know, in getting more things, you know, think of a miser, or, you know, somebody's, you know, very, very acquisitive, wants more and more and more. And yet the more doesn't provide happiness for them, because the problem wasn't really the lack of, you know, possessions or whatever. The problem was always the unexamined craving, you know, that leads to suffering. So we think we can be happy and be secure by getting more of what we want and getting rid of what we don't like, and disconnecting from, you know, whatever we might think is boring or uninteresting. The Buddha said the source of our suffering is craving. You know, the word in the Pali language is tanha, T-A-N-H-A, tanha. And tanha translates as thirst. It's this thirst, you know, we're thirsty, like somebody who's, you know, hasn't had, you know, been wandering and, you know, in the hot sun and hasn't had anything to drink. And, you know, there's that sense of wanting, that kind of craving, that urging. And that's the nature of our, or if you like, the source of our suffering. It can be thirst for pleasures, you know, sense pleasures, things that are tasty or beautiful, or, you know, that we like, you know, the smell, taste, feel of, etc. It could be, you know, craving to get rid of what we don't like. You know, I don't like this. I don't like this person, this politician, this, you know, so I feel angry. I want to push them away, you know, get them out of my life, or somebody we don't like, a colleague or something. And this craving really is being in an unskillful or an afflictive relationship with our experience. You can see our suffering as basically, we're wanting things to be different than they are. We're in a struggle with the way things are. We're in a struggle with our experience, with reality. So the Buddha taught when we crave, we suffer. We build really an edifice around ourselves that is designed to strengthen and protect us, but actually serves to disconnect us from ourselves, from others, and what we care most about. So with this craving, what we're doing is we're building this, armoring, if you like, around ourselves, that we obviously we push away what we don't like. We build like a barrier around ourselves. And when we're wanting what we don't have, we think I'll be happy if I get this. Then what we do is we create a sense of separation. We wall ourselves off from our experience. There's a gap there, and in that gap there is suffering. So what we're doing essentially is we are kind of encasing ourselves. We're separating ourselves, from our deepest emotions, from our deepest compassion for ourselves. We're separating ourselves from others. We're separating ourselves from life. So in the same way, we're disconnecting. It's like we're encasing ourselves in a protective armoring, like the Buddha statue, and losing connection with ourselves and with our goodness. So we can think of the different ways we do that. When we get caught up in fear, this can cause us to put up barriers around ourselves, kind of like the walls of a gated community, keeping the threatening outside out. So when we get caught up in fear, it's like we want to push away the thing that is fearful to us. Maybe something within us is fearful. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go to that memory or that maybe traumatic experience. And so it's like part of us is walled off. We're not really whole. We're not experiencing ourselves in our wholeness, in our fullness, in our true nature. Think about it. When we get caught up in anger, we create separation from what or who we blame for what's threatening to us. Let's say you're caught up in an argument with a loved one, a spouse, a partner, family member. When I notice, when I get caught up in those, typically with my significant other, when we both get, caught up in, having a back and forth, annoyed about something or differing about something, I notice that I become disconnected from my body very easily. I go into my head. My body tends to be, is in that time, I'm wanting to get my point across. I feel tense, but I'm not really aware of that because I'm so in my head. The other person becomes two-dimensional. We're not looking at them in their fullness at that time. We're just looking at like, I've got my view and I'm right on this. And they're, this, what Tara Brach calls the unreal other, the unreal other. They lose their, dimensionality. They lose their depth. They lose their, in some ways, they lose the richness of who they are, because I'm just seeing them as like a problem, them there, out there, And so I lose connection with myself, my emotions, my body, and with the other. I'm clinging to my opinions, my beliefs, and I'm really separated from myself and from, in this case, from the other person. In any situation where we're caught up in separation, whether it's pushing away or pulling something towards us, we have this same experience. We have this sense of self and other. we reinforce the sense of self, I'm right in this situation. I need to get this. I hate this other person. They're always like this, this unreal other. When the same happens when we're caught up in a more actual kind of craving, a greed kind of craving, the mind goes to a kind of tunnel vision. We see only the object that we desire. And again, there's that separation. There's us, there's the thing we want, there's the people and the things that might get in the way of getting what we want. We're just kind of fixated on, I gotta have this, gotta have this. We know this in addiction, if we've ever experienced addiction or, something close to that, or obsession, about something. We lose the bigger picture and we just get fixated, and there's self and others. And there's that sense of separation. We're not connected with ourselves. We've encased ourselves in this, this protective armor, but rather than protecting us, it separates us from ourselves, from others, and from life. Things get narrowed down. We lose connection with the bigger picture and our deepest intentions. So finding our gold, if you like, is to come back and remember our true nature that's always here, but is often covered with our walls of defenses. So how do we find our way back to ourselves, back to our true nature? I think the way to begin is to ask ourselves, what is my deepest intention right now? When we come back to our deepest intention, we really invite ourselves to come back to ourselves, to break through that separation. So if we think again of being in a conflict with somebody, when we're in a conflict, when we're in a fight, an argument, we're acting as though the most important thing in the world is that I make my point, or that I'm right in this situation, and the other person realizes that they're stupid or wrong, or they're not, they don't have the right answer or whatever. So that, and that you want to let the other person know how you feel about them, or feel about their argument, or whatever. But if you ask yourself in this situation what your deepest wish is, it's much more likely to be that you want to connect with the other person. You want to be in a caring relationship with them. You want to understand them. You want to understand and care about each other. I mean, typically in any situation like that, our deepest wish is not really to be right or to prove our point. In an immediate sense, that's what we're caught up in. That's the illusion that that's what I want right now. I need this. I need to be right. I need to get my views across. But if we come back to our deepest intention, we recognize that there is something much deeper than the more immediate desire, more immediate wish. So in this way, we can find our way back to the gold, back to ourselves, back to what matters most, by connecting with our deepest intentions. And then we can pay attention with kindness to whatever is present. If we notice, if we're in an argument, we can pause, we can come back and say, oh, I notice I'm really tense. My muscles are all tight and tense because I'm caught up in this conflict, in this, in holding on to, my view, my way of seeing things. And we can invite a relaxing, as we do in the meditation, a letting go of the holding. We can notice, oh, I'm really tight. okay, what happens if I just relax? What happens if I take a deeper breath or two? Just in doing that, it tends to help us to step out of the storyline in our mind, step out of that sense of separation and step back into connection with ourselves, which is really the starting point for connecting with others. You know, if we're not connected to ourselves, to our feelings, to our bodies, to our emotions, when we're not really going to be able to be connected with another person and their feelings and what they're caring about. So the Buddha said all suffering comes from contracting around what we desire or dislike. And it's rooted in ignorance. It's rooted in confusion. It's rooted in, you know, thinking that we're going to find happiness and freedom where they're not to be found. And in order to recognize that, we need to step out of the kind of the immediacy of our delusions, immediacy of like, I've got to have this, I want this, I need this, and just come back, relax, connect with, what do I really want? What is my genuine intention right now? We have to find a way back to the connection with ourselves, back to the gold, back to our true nature. As our late beloved friend Leonard Cohen said, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. So we can find our way back to the gold, back to ourselves, back to what matters most by connecting with our deepest intentions and by connecting with our direct experience here and now. So the Buddha's teachings of the Four Noble Truths are about finding our way from separation from ourself, from the world, from others. This is the first and the second noble truth, that we suffer and that our suffering comes from clinging, from craving, from that sense of separation. And in this way, we encase ourselves in suffering, in that sense of separation. And the third and the fourth noble truth are that we can uncover our true nature. We can uncover the truth. This is the end of suffering, finding our way to the end of suffering, through the path to the end of suffering, through the practices. And I mentioned two of them: with wise intention, connecting with our deepest intention. This is the second of the elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. And through awareness, wise mindfulness, and wise effort, and wise concentration, focusing the mind. Three of the elements of the Eightfold Path connected with training the mind. So we come back through our practice, through training ourselves, training the mind, training the heart, back to our true nature, back to who we truly are. So what I'd like to finish with is just take a moment. Maybe we can take a reflective, meditative couple of moments. Just check in with yourself right now. What is it that separates you from your goodness, from your true nature, from who you really are? What gets in the way? What forms a kind of a barrier, kind of a defensive structure that you've created? What separates you from others? From truly connecting with others? You know, what barriers have you built or are you building that create that false sense of separation? And if you can think of, kind of identify with anything that separates you. You might ask, what can help me break through the barriers, the defenses? You could ask yourself, what do I care about most deeply? What do I care about most deeply in my life? Or in this situation? And just opening to what's present, meeting what's here with kindness, with care. And what we'll do is we'll take some time in small groups right now, groups of 3 or 4. And I invite you to share just, you know, what's come up for you, what's present for you today, you know, with the meditation, with the talk. You know, does it bring up anything that you want to bring awareness to, you want to work with in your practice? And these small groups are a way of just sharing from the heart, sharing mindfully what's present, using it as a time for mindful speaking when it's your turn to speak, mindful listening when you're listening to others, and just take 2 or 3 minutes each person sharing, and then we'll come back. We'll have some time together in the full group, and some time to meditate before we finish today. So, Mark, if you would have folks get into groups of 4, and we'll come back in 15 minutes. See you in a bit. Well, it's good to have so many folks joining us from different places, different parts of the country. And
well, she said she's moving to Silver Spring, so maybe I'll see her around.
Yeah, that's great. Great. Well, welcome back, everyone. Please feel free to share in the chat anything, you know, any wishes for you have, or any insights you might have had, or anything that came up for you that you'd like to share, or any gratitude for your colleagues who were in the small group with you. And we'll take a few minutes to see if there's anyone would like to share anything came up for you, anything interesting, any questions you might have. We'll open things up. So let us know, raise a hand, either a virtual one or an actual one, if you have anything. Julie.
Well, I don't have to give the details, but I'm in a complicated work situation. So this was really helpful today, but even more helpful was being in a group with Francine and Sam. Sam had some great insights, and then Francine has been through a similar situation, and it's just great to remember that everybody goes through this stuff. It's very universal, and other people do an excellent job getting through it. So I'll be fine, I guess. But it reminds me how good Sangha is, you know, to remember how universal it's not really about us all the time.
That's great. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the really great gifts is to just hear from other people, you know, that recognize that we're all, you know, that we're all experiencing challenges of different kinds. And I mean, the strange thing is about when we get caught up in suffering, we get into that sense of separation. And often the story in our minds is like, I'm the only one experiencing this. I'm the only one going through it right now. So to be able to connect with others and to say, oh yeah, they're going through their own journeys, their own challenges and stuff. It helps, you know, helps us break through that encasing of ourselves in separation. So thank you for sharing that, Julie. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? How's everyone else doing? How are we feeling? People feeling somewhat more relieved about the pandemic and where things are, and perhaps being able to get out more and be around loved ones more and friends and all of that. Anything anyone would like to share? We can take a few minutes for this. Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Hugh. I just wanted to share, I had a wonderful conversation with just two of us in my group with Karamira, and it was really an insight that I did. It was really about the pause that refreshes, you know, taking that moment to pause, and in particular in dealing with people who may be close to us and care for us, but may have very different views for us on different things. I mean, different than maybe your discussion about your partner, but you know, the insight to me was that, and I think this a lot, we talk a lot about how fraught and divided the world is right now, and how triggered we are when we hear somebody express views we may strongly disagree with, and are right. You know, we feel we're very right to disagree with those views. But by taking a pause and not being triggered by that, it may actually help us preserve some relationships. Some may be lost, and a lot are being lost these days, but maybe some of those relationships can be preserved, and the common humanity, the things that bind us, the caring that is in so many people, and behind a lot of the things on the surface that might trigger us in a negative way, can help bring us together. And it's a big ambition, but I really think from such a simple thing, just pausing to look at that inner, you know, golden Buddha in every one of us, and that bowing to that nature in a real way, it might actually help us sort of repair so many of the breaches that are around us now. So I was just going to share that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Is that saying that all sickness is homesickness? You know, that you know, I think all of our suffering comes from that sense of disconnection, separation, and largely from ourselves and our own hearts and our own bodies and our own emotions. And I think you put it so well, Bob, that if we can take the pause, we can just, you know, just, it seems so simple and yet is so, in some ways, so revolutionary that it can help us step out of suffering. You know, it might even be very intense suffering, and just pausing and paying attention. In the very act of doing that, we're disconnecting ourselves from that, you know, the narrative, the story, at least for a moment or a few moments, to be able to say, okay, all right, now I can look, now I can come home, I can recognize, oh, I'm tight, I'm tense, I'm angry, I'm believing something, and then that becomes a kind of a potential through line to untangling ourselves, untangling. I often come back to this untangling the tangle of our lives. The Buddhist story of the person coming to the Buddha and saying, a tangle within, a tangle without. Everyone is tangled in a tangle. Who can untangle this tangle? There's 6 tangles there, And the Buddha says, the person, the one who has cultivated, awareness and compassion, cultivated, has trained the heart and mind, is the one who can untangle the tangle. And I love that term, just the word tangle, because it so much speaks to me of the way we can get contorted and distorted and kind of mixed up and caught up in, caught up in suffering, because of not seeing things clearly. And the coming back to intention, coming back to attention, and coming back to just the attitudes of kindness and acceptance that can help us kind of unravel ourselves from it all. Karen, would you like to share some words?
Yeah. So at the group, so we were discussing what is your deepest intention. So I went a little bit farther and I asked myself, what is my deepest intention like in life? Because I'm actually moving on and I'm not doing the crisis work anymore, and I got different job offers and I was debating which one to take. And I was still working with different type of populations, but I decided to go to the ones that can help Latin American, Guatemala and Salvador, especially because there are not many people who are therapists that are from Guatemala. So I was sharing what I remember my grandpa told me when he was alive in Guatemala, like never forget about your people. So it's always like, what is my deepest intention? It's gonna help those who have less.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, there's so much suffering there as well, and yeah, and a deep bow to you for making that decision and that choice to go to, where the need feels really strongest and most connected to you, to your heart. There's such a wisdom in following our heart and following that our deepest caring. Yeah, a bow to you for doing that, for following your heart. It's the practice of a bodhisattva to turn their attention, really, to turn our vision towards where the suffering is most compelling, or we're most drawn to it. And so thank you. You'll still be doing it here in our area?
Yeah, so I will stop doing crisis, but I'll go, it's called Ayuda, which is low, I think you're familiar, low income immigrants. And I will still do the private practice aside, but that would be like part-time, and the full-time will be with them. And I will still be here. But yeah, it was literally what you're saying. Like when I was deciding, it was like just what my heart felt more like kind of drawn in and more connected. And when I say yes, I just felt like, because it's kind of hard. Like when I was in the other position, it was very hard to find them therapists for them.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I have to say, on a personal note, I'm glad you're staying. We definitely want you. Even though we can be together on Zoom and all of that, it's good to know that you're here, and there's such a need here in our area. So.
Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Diane, would you like to share? Diane in North Carolina?
Yes, thanks. Songs always come in my head. And as you were talking this morning, I posted it up in the chat about Joni Mitchell popping up. That we are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. And I'm dating myself here. And then there's a Judy Collins song called Secret Gardens of the Heart. But as you're talking about like the Golden Buddha, I hear that story, but I realized I was connecting the gold to a garden and feeling more like at my heart is something that brings up a lot of the metaphors too about, you talk about cultivating, and I've been wrestling with a lot of vines and prickly things out in the area around my home. That I think we can, our true nature can get covered over with lots of overgrowth and weeds and things that come up that we didn't necessarily invite, but that are there now. And it takes attention and care and nurturing, and it's a living thing, I guess. And for me, when I think about gold, I think about something hard and kind of inert and shiny, and I'd much rather have a garden than a gold nugget. So thank you.
Lovely. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Diane. Yeah, I think of that, the in the teachings, and and as they're shared, one in English, one of the most common words for the training is, in fact, cultivation. To cultivate. We use that term a lot, don't we? We say, cultivate acceptance, cultivate kind attention, and all of that. And it's very much, it's very much a gardening metaphor. And then, as I see, with Ronnie's flowers and Rich's garden behind him, we see it's such an apt image. It's such an apt, if we use it as a metaphor as well, of cultivation. Because so much of I was thinking of this the other day in another class of how much of our, what our minds are like, kind of, a garden that's completely overgrown. It's like the mind going all over the place, the attention everywhere. And it's like, an uncultivated garden. And just the practices of kindness, of acceptance, of attention, as like pruning and weeding and cutting, appropriately, and it makes such a difference, not just in how the garden looks, obviously in that area, but also in its function, in how the mind, how the mind actually functions. I've actually, on a personal note, I've become a steward of our section of Sligo Creek Park, helping keep, our mile or mile and a half, a mile or so of the park clean. And I'm going to be doing a training in cutting out, getting rid of invasive vines, invasive weeds. And one of the things to know is that not all weeds are bad, and that there are invasive and non-invasive ones, and you don't want to cut away the non-invasive ones. You want to get rid of the ones that are actually causing harm. And we know, I heard there are 5,000 trees in Tacoma Park that are dying because of invasive weeds and vines. I just thinking I'm going to continue with that as a metaphor of distinguishing the helpful weeds from the unhelpful ones. So yeah, that kind of that image of cultivation, that metaphor of cultivation, I think is one that very much is in the spirit of the Buddha's training of the mind and the heart, that it's conscious, it's intentional, it's looking at, well, what happens if I do this? If I do, cut off or don't fertilize particular kinds of thoughts and emotions, what happens? Is that helpful? Does it starve them in a helpful way so that harmful things don't kind of keep blossoming? And so I think it's a really helpful, valuable way of seeing the training of heart and mind that we do in this practice. So,
could I just add one more thing?
Yes, please.
Just as you're talking, it reminds me actually of the neural pathways and what we're doing when we, getting the wiring together of our actual nervous systems, that there is a sort of pruning and that can happen. So another lay of metaphor.
Lovely. Thank you, Diane. And let's just take a few minutes of meditation, and then we'll finish, or we'll have some announcements and finish. So invite you to let the eyes close, let your attention come inward. Just begin by noticing what's present for you, noticing how the body feels, noticing whatever emotions or mind states might be present. Notice, be aware of the thoughts in your mind. And making space for whatever is here, so that everything can come and go in its own time. Chogyam Trungpa said, there's no need to struggle to be free. Ending the struggle is itself freedom. There's no need to struggle to be free. Ending the struggle is itself freedom. So a lot of our practice is ending the struggle, ending the kind of the craving for what we want, the pushing away of what we don't like, and just inviting a kind and caring attention to what's present right now, what's present here and now. This breath, this moment. You might just connect with your breathing. And as you breathe in, just invite in compassion towards yourself. Just wishing yourself well. It could be a word, may I be, or a phrase, may I be safe, may I be happy. May I be kind to myself. May I accept myself, accept this moment. And as you breathe out, just breathing out care and compassion to all of us here together today. Just wishing everyone well. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you live with ease and with kindness. Breathing in kindness to yourself, breathing out care, compassion, loving kindness to everyone here and outward into the world, all who are suffering in pain at this time. Wishing them well. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be held in loving kindness, filled with loving kindness. May you live with ease and with kindness. Wishing yourself and all beings happiness, well-being. A short poem by David Budbill this morning. Oh, this life, the now, this morning, which I can turn into forever by simply loving what is here, is gone by noon. Oh, this life, the now, this morning, which I can turn into forever by simply loving what is here, is gone by noon.